So this video is supplemental to the main video for how to apply to volunteer at a convention. This video will show you how the volunteer application works when the convention requires you to have a badge to volunteer. If you haven't watched the main video, you should watch that first because that goes over the overall process of applying to volunteer, and this video is only going to go over the changes that are the differences that are there if the convention requires volunteers to have badges. As you'll see in this video, the changes are pretty minimal. So I've set how to con to use our strictest available settings so that the convention requires a volunteer to have a badge for the same day as that they want to volunteer. And I'm logged in as user Marcus Aurelius, and I want to volunteer at HowToCon. However, when I go to the available volunteers shifts page and scroll down, I can see that there are a couple of alerts. The first is an information alert, which is about the convention's badge requirement, and it says, note that the convention requires you to have a badge for the day you wish to volunteer. So this is where you would be informed about any volunteer badge requirement for the convention. And then the second alert is a warning to tell me that I do not have any badges yet. You do not have any badges yet. You must have a convention badge to volunteer. When the convention is set to require a badge to volunteer, this page cares about whether you have a badge or not. And if you have a badge, you can begin the application process, and if you don't have a badge, you can't. So I'm now going to go get a badge so I can apply to volunteer, and then I'll come back to the available shifts page. So here we are at the end of my having purchased a badge. You can see I'm on the receipt page, and you can see also I've bought myself a badge, Thursday-Friday badge, for the How To convention. So now I'm going to go back to available shifts. Oops. And so now, when I scroll down the page, we can see that it has changed slightly. It now shows me the badge I just purchased in a list below the available shifts list itself. This list of badges will actually show all the badges that I own for the convention. So if for some reason I had other badges for this convention, those would also appear here. And the purpose of the list is to allow you to compare the days for your badge or badges to the days having available shifts. So as you can see for this badge here on the right, it shows me the days that this badge is good for, and it's as we just saw, Thursday and Friday, day 1 and day 2. And if I scroll up to the available shifts list, I can see that there are shifts for both of those days, day 1 and day 2, Thursday and Friday. There are also shifts available for other days, but the badge that I have will only let me volunteer for these shifts up at the top. Now the system is not checking at this point if any of the badges that I have down here will allow me to volunteer for specific shifts up above. It's only going to check at the time of choosing my shifts as part of my application whether I have an appropriate badge for the shift I want to volunteer for. But I have a badge now, so I'm going to start my application. And I'm just going to add some info as we're learned in the previous main video, and click on Start Application. And this takes me to the edit view for the information I just entered to verify that it is saved. And I don't want to change anything or add anything, so now I'm just going to go to choose my shifts. And also, as mentioned in the previous, the main how to apply video, this page, Choose Shifts, is essentially the same as the available shifts page, but except that it also shows a volunteer button for all of the available shifts. So if we scroll down, we can see that it also shows again the information message about the volunteer badge requirement as available shifts did, and it's also showing me my badges for the convention. So you don't have to just remember what shifts you thought you could volunteer for from the available shifts page. You can always re-review on the Choose Your Shifts page what days match up with which shifts. And so I'm just going to choose some shifts. That's all there is to it. So if I click on a shift for Thursday, it just replaces the volunteer button with unvolunteer. I can unvolunteer if I want, as we saw in the main video. So I do that, and I'm going to volunteer for the Friday shift 3 also. Now if I try to volunteer for a day that my badge doesn't cover, such as Saturday, I'm going to get an error alert. You can see it says you must have a convention badge for day 3, Saturday, to volunteer for this shift. So this is where the restriction is enforced. Right now I can only volunteer for the shifts that are for Thursday and Friday, days 1 and 2. And these 2 shifts are the only ones I want to volunteer for, so I'm going to click Submit My Application. And then that will bring us to the My Shifts page. And we can see the complete application. And now you can see in the shifts list for your volunteer application that it also includes the badge that is supporting that shift. And you can see for both of these shifts, it's using badge number 4. It's using the badge number. It's using badge number 4 to support the shift. And these badge numbers are actually links, so if you need to look at the badge, there's a convenient link here for you to see the badge view page. So there are a couple restrictions on badges that are used to volunteer that are not going to apply to badges normally. Basically, you have to own the badge. You can't change the ownership of the badge if you're using it for your volunteer application or for any shifts in your volunteer application. So you can't delete it, and you can't give it to a friend. You can't use the friend function to give away the badge. It's also possible that if you were to try to convert the badge from one type to another, that might not work. If the badge that you're converting it to won't support the shifts that you are that you've applied for. So just to show you what would happen if you try to delete a badge that's in use for a volunteer application, we'll go to the badges page, and you can see here's my badge, Marcus Aurelius, Thursday, Friday. There's a delete option, so I click on delete, and what happens is I get an error alert which says this badge is being used for your volunteer application. Contact the volunteer's manager if you wish to be removed from the schedule. So I cannot delete that badge because it is in use by my volunteer application. So what can I do if, for instance, I need to delete a badge that I've used for a volunteer application? So first of all, if you've applied for volunteer shifts and those have been declined, that will not restrict the badge. The only volunteer shifts that will restrict the deletion of your badge that is used in support of those shifts is if that's pending, if your status is unscheduled, or if you're actually on the schedule. So the first thing is that if your volunteer shifts are at status unscheduled, you can go ahead and go in and remove those yourself. So you would just go down here to the Edit My Application button. You would begin the Edit My Application process, which is essentially, as mentioned in the main How to Apply video, it's essentially the same as just creating a new application. And when you get to the Choose My Shifts page, you would just click all of the unvolunteer buttons for those shifts that you want to get off of. And once you've done that, the badge will no longer be restricted. Once you've deleted all the if all of the shifts that you have for that badge are not yet scheduled and you delete them all, then the badge, you can do what you want with the badge. Now if you are on the schedule for any of these shifts that the badge is supporting, you will have to get in touch with the volunteer manager to be taken off the schedule, because the user does not have the ability to simply delete their scheduled shift as they want. So you would have to contact the volunteer manager and have them take you off the schedule. And once you've been taken off the schedule, you can go in and delete the badge that was being used for those scheduled shifts. So that is how it works if you were to have only a single badge for a convention. Now, there is one further option which you could use if you happen to have more than one badge for the convention, and by that I mean more than one badge that would be supporting a volunteer shift that you've applied for. You have the ability to switch the badges. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a cut to the video here, and when we come back you'll see that the screen has changed a little bit to show you this feature. Okay, so what I did in between the cut there, during the cut, is I went and added a couple badges to Marcus Aurelius's account, and also I applied for another shift. So what I did was I added an additional Thursday, Friday badge, and I added a Saturday badge. And you can see now below I've applied also for Saturday shift number 2. Now Saturday shift number 2 is being supported by the Saturday badge that I added to Marcus's account. And you can see here that there is no change button next to that shift. That is because this is the only badge supporting that account, and you can't change it to any other badge because this is the only badge you have that will support that shift. Next, or above it rather, you can see that the other shifts, though, the original shifts that I applied for on Thursday and Friday, do have a change button next to them. And this change button, again, is appearing because I have actually now 2 badges that support each of those shifts. So let's say that I wanted to delete badge number 4. And for some reason, what I can do is I can change the badge here on the My Shifts page. So if you want to change the badge for a shift, if that is something that is possible because of how you manage your badges or so on, you can come here and you would just find the shift you want to change the badge for and click on the Change button. And that opens a little drop down beneath it, and you can select the badge that you want to change it to. So I'm going to change this to badge number 8. You can see that immediately changes it to badge number 8. And now I will go and click on badge number 8 for this other shift. And now badge number 4 is not being used for any of my volunteer shifts, and I can delete that freely. And again, if you don't see a change button there, that means that you don't have the option of changing the badge being used to support that shift, and you will have to either remove yourself from the schedule or have the volunteer manager remove you from the schedule if you've actually already been scheduled.